You've probably heard that eye contact is important, but nobody tells you there's a specific way to do it that makes people instantly feel safe around you, in a way that makes them deeply uncomfortable. Most people are accidentally doing the second one without realizing it. Here's what this video is about. I'm going to show you exactly why eye contact goes wrong for most people, reveal the psychological mechanism behind what naturally confident people do differently, and by the end, give you a dead simple 3-second rule that rewires how people perceive you from the very first moment you look at them. But here's the thing. Most people think eye contact is about holding someone's gaze longer. That's not it. They think it's about intensity, showing you're serious and engaged. Also wrong. The real secret isn't about how long you look. It's about what you're communicating in that look. And there's a specific way to get that right that almost nobody talks about. Let me paint a picture. You're at a work event, a party, or just waiting in line somewhere. You glance at someone, they glance back, and suddenly you panic. You look away immediately, like you got caught doing something wrong. Or worse, you hold the stare a beat too long, and now it's just weird. So you go back to your phone. You tell yourself you're just not a naturally confident person. But here's what's actually happening. You're treating eye contact like a competition, something to win or lose, instead of what it actually is, a signal you're sending about how safe you are to be around. Confident people aren't holding eye contact longer, they're holding it differently. And once you understand the difference, everything changes. But before I show you what they're doing, you need to understand why your current approach is silently working against you. When you break eye contact too fast, you send one very specific message: I'm nervous and I don't feel like I belong here. People pick this up instantly. Not consciously, they just feel slightly less comfortable around you. They can't explain why, but something feels off. On the other side, when you hold eye contact too long without any softness in your expression, you trigger a completely different alarm in people's brains. That's a staring contest, not a connection. The brain reads prolonged, unblinking eye contact as a dominant signal, or worse, a threat. So you're stuck between two failure modes. Look away too fast and you seem anxious. Hold too long and you seem aggressive. But then I discovered something that changed the way I understood this completely. Back in the 1960s, a psychologist named Michael Argyle started studying eye contact patterns in social interaction. What he found surprised everyone. It wasn't the duration of eye contact that determined how people felt about each other. It was the quality of what happened during and right after the gaze. People who were perceived as warm, trustworthy, and confident weren't holding eye contact for longer periods. They were doing something specific with their expression during that contact, and then breaking it in a particular way that signaled comfort, not retreat. His research showed that a gaze followed by a soft, natural look away created more trust than prolonged staring ever could. Because it communicated something the brain immediately registers as safe: I see you, and I'm not threatened by you, and I'm not threatening you either. That's the signal confident people send without even thinking about it. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this intentionally. Here's the 3-second rule and why it works. The rule itself is simple. When you make eye contact with someone, hold it for roughly 3 seconds with a relaxed expression. Then break it slowly by looking slightly to the side, not down. Then return naturally a few moments later. That's it. 3 seconds. Soft break. Return. But here's why each part matters more than you think. The 3 seconds is doing something very specific. 3 seconds is long enough to register as intentional, not accidental. You're not glancing, you're actually seeing them. Most people make eye contact for less than a second before panicking and looking away. That reads as avoidance. 3 seconds crosses the threshold from accidental to acknowledged, from nervous to present. It tells the other person you're aware of them, and you're comfortable being aware of them, without making it a power move. The soft expression is where most people miss it entirely. You can hold eye contact for exactly 3 seconds, but if your face is tight, blank, or intense, you've completely undone the effect. The expression during the contact is what carries the emotional signal. A slight relaxation around the eyes, a micro softness, not a full smile, just an openness, tells the other person your gaze is friendly, not evaluative. You're not sizing them up. You're simply acknowledging them. This is what people mean when they say someone has warm eyes. It's not a physical trait. It's a decision they're making about what to communicate in the moment of contact. Then comes the break. And this is the part nobody talks about. Where you break eye contact matters as much as when you break it. If you look down when you break contact, your brain is sending a submission signal. I wasn't supposed to look at you. I got caught. I'm sorry. That's exactly what makes people feel like you're nervous or unconfident, even if everything else about you seems fine. Looking down is the giveaway. But if you break by looking slightly to the side, like you're naturally thinking or processing something else, your brain sends a completely different message. I see you, I'm comfortable. I'm just moving my attention naturally, not fleeing. That tiny directional shift changes the entire emotional read. And then the return. The fact that you look back a few moments later is what closes the loop. It tells them that first look wasn't random, it wasn't an accident. You're actually interested in connecting. The return is what separates people who seem socially confident from people who seem like they're trying to manage anxiety, because anxious people avoid the second look. They get through the first contact and then stare at the floor or their phone for the next 3 minutes. Confident people come back naturally, like the interaction is comfortable enough to revisit. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You can use this in layers depending on the context. In a one on one conversation, the 3 second rule becomes a rhythm, not a one time thing. You're not staring at someone for the entire conversation, but you're making consistent, intentional contact, holding for a natural beat, then moving away and returning. That rhythm is what makes people feel like you're genuinely present with them rather than performing attention. In a group setting, the rule helps you include people. You make brief, intentional contact with each person rather than locking onto one person or nervously scanning the room without landing anywhere. And here's something that surprised me when I started practicing this. The biggest shift wasn't in how other people responded to me, it was in how I felt during conversations. When you give yourself a rule, 3 seconds, soft break, return, you stop panicking about eye contact because you have a structure to follow. The anxiety shrinks because there's no more guessing. You know what you're doing. And that internal calm shows up on your face, which makes the whole thing work even better. It becomes a self reinforcing loop. However, there's one specific situation where people apply this rule wrong, and it completely backfires. That's when they treat it like a performance. When you're thinking about the rule while you're doing it, the other person can feel something slightly off. You seem like you're following a checklist, not actually connecting. The fix is to use it as a starting point, not a permanent script. Practice it intentionally in low stakes situations. A cashier, someone you pass in the hallway, a colleague you say good morning to. Get comfortable with the feel of it until it stops feeling like a technique and starts feeling like just how you naturally engage with people, because that's the real goal. Which brings me to the deeper thing going on here. The 3 second rule works not because it's a trick, but because it forces you to actually be present with people for 3 seconds. You can't make genuine, soft, natural eye contact while thinking about your grocery list or what you're going to say next. You have to actually be there. And the strange paradox is that when you're actually present, people feel it. They feel seen. They feel like you're someone safe to be around. And that feeling is what makes them want to talk to you, approach you, trust you, remember you. Most people spend their entire lives waiting to feel confident before they make real eye contact. But confidence doesn't come first, the action comes first. You make the eye contact, you feel the discomfort, you stay in it for 3 seconds, you break it cleanly, you return naturally. And slowly, over time, your nervous system learns this is safe, this is fine, I can do this. And that's when the identity shift happens. You stop being someone who struggles with eye contact and you become someone who makes people feel seen. So here's what you do. The next time you walk into any space, pick one person, make eye contact, hold it for 3 seconds with a relaxed expression, break to the side, return once. That's it. One time. Do it once in your next interaction. Notice how it feels, notice how they respond, and then do it again. Because every time you do it, you're not just practicing a skill, you're telling your brain a new story about who you are. And eventually, that story becomes a truth.